Hi friends, welcome to Bob Smart Class. We are committed to provide you best training modules for all classes, subjects and courses, be it online, classroom or home tuitions. In this video series, we will be discussing about coding best practices. This applies to all languages on which you develop your web applications or mobile apps. To start with, let me introduce myself. I am Harpreet Singh Kohli, a consultant, mentor, and coach for developing web applications and mobile apps. You can reach me on info@bobsmartclass.com or call me on following numbers. Small introduction about this video. In this video, we will be discussing about common graphical user interface pointers you must consider while developing any type of web applications or mobile apps. While going through this video, you will realize that these pointers are common to any type of website or mobile app development, be it e-commerce, e-learning, travel, medicine, education, or any other domain you think about. Adding to the above, no one, neither customer nor your team leader, will mention these pointers, as most of these pointers are common sense and it is believed that you will be considering them without anyone asking you. Lastly, these are common pointers and they may change if asked by customer or your team leader. But if not mentioned, please consider them as they are. First and the foremost point is that your website should be responsive. Responsive means that your website should change its UI to look properly on any type of screen resolutions, be it desktop, iPad, or mobile devices. Nowadays, many companies provide free responsive design templates. You can go to their websites to download these templates and make use of them. Next important point is to avoid spelling and grammatical mistakes while defining labels, alerts, SMS notifications, email templates, or error messages, etc., which are seen on your mobile apps or web applications. You can take help of Google or ask a friend, a senior, or a content writer. Or you can go to a similar app and take help of it. Next important point is proper alignment of labels and controls on your screens. Most of the websites or mobile apps consider placing labels and controls as vertically left aligned. But in few cases, we see that they are right aligned also. Whatever you consider, you have to consider it throughout your application. It is not good that in one of your screens it is left aligned and in another right aligned. Next important point is movement of cursor from one control to another while pressing tab button. It's a standard that it starts from first control on the top, moves from left to right and comes to the end of the screen. If this is not proper, you can change the tab index parameter on HTML controls. Next important point is to consider max length parameter in your HTML controls. This will avoid error and truncate issues. Define max length as the total width of the column it is relating to. Suppose we have a name field in database having 20 characters width. Now defining the max length as 20 will avoid user to enter more than 20 characters. So there will not be an truncate error. Next important point is to choose date format for your application. This should be identical throughout all screens and reports you and your team generates. Every country has its own date format. For example, in India, we write first day, then month, then year. But in US, it is opposite. They write first year, then month, then day. So you have to ask your customer or team leader that this application which you are developing will be used by which type of users. Accordingly, you have to define the date format for those type of users. Similar to date format, you have to define numeric format also. And it should be identical throughout your application. Suppose in India we have a different format and in US different. But if your application is globally accessed, then you have to provide a functionality to user to change numeric format. Next important point is to avoid using alphanumeric simple text box for getting numeric values such as amount, quantity, etc. Instead, we have to use numeric controls. Numeric controls restrict users to enter only numbers. They have increment and decrement spin buttons at the end of the control. We can also define currency in these numeric controls. Next important point is to define a date control in your application. This should be identical throughout all screens and reports you generate. Many websites use date control having calendar button at the end of the control. But in few websites it's seen that there are 3 drop downs having year, month and day values. I recommend to use date control having calendar button, which is more user friendly for users. Some common validations to be considered while using date controls. If you have from and to date in your screen, obviously from date should not be more than to date. You have to restrict that. And if there is a date of birth in your screen, then you should not accept future date in date of birth. Similarly, if you have date of joining and date of leaving organization on your screen, you should consider that date of joining should not be greater than date of leaving. Similarly, the date of departure should not be more than date of arrival. Next important point is to provide email validation on text box getting email ID from user. HTML5 provides type equals to email in input control for this validation. It also displays an alert message if this validation is not considered. Next important point is for password text boxes. Values in password text boxes are not visible. Instead, asterisk is displayed for every entered character. We can have a I button on right side of the control. Clicking on that I button, user can see the actual value. Next is defining password policy while creating an account or changing password. Standard password policy is as under. Password should be at least 8 characters length and must have one special character, one numeric, one uppercase and a lowercase. Password should be changed regularly, maybe after 10 or 15 days. Password should not be reused. And default password, if defined, should be changed immediately. As per security standards, you have to lock user login if correct password is not entered in consecutive 5 or 6 attempts. For reactivating login, user has to contact admin. Now we will be discussing about drop-downs. There are few common considerations to be noted down. In case of data entry forms, first option in drop-down must be select. And in case drop-down is placed in search criteria of a report or list page, its first option must be all. Second, values inside drop-down must be alphabetically ascending or in descending order. In few cases, there is a need to have 2 or 3 linked drop-downs on our data entry or report screens. For example, we have country, state and city drop-downs. City is dependent upon state and state is dependent upon country. So, child drop-down must be filled according to parent drop-down. That is, city must be filled as per selected state and state must be filled as per selected country. For example, if user selects India in country drop-down, then your code must fill state drop-down with states of India and not states of any other country. Similar is the case of third drop-down as city. If Haryana is selected as state, then city drop-down must be filled with cities of Haryana and not any other cities. There are few cases in which we need from to range drop-downs. For example, from price to price in search filter criteria. Values inside from price and to price can be same, but user must be restricted to select value of from drop-down to not to be greater than value of to drop-down and vice versa. That is, to drop-down value cannot be less than from drop-down. Next, we are discussing about alt parameter in image control. Alt parameter must be defined when placing image on your website. This will provide a description of image and is helpful as per SEO guidelines. Next, we have to avoid displaying system error if image is not found. Instead, we have to display a no image photo. Next is file upload control. You have to consider following pointers while defining file upload control. Don't allow to upload exe or JS files. This is a security breach. Hackers can upload these files and then execute them to get data or damage your data from your website. Second, mention maximum file size and also allowed extensions to be uploaded. For example, if you want to upload image file, then you have to only define maybe 2 megabyte maximum size or the extensions as GIF, JPG, PNG, etc. But don't allow to upload doc file or PDF files. Next is HTML editor control. While defining HTML editor control, you have to consider following points. Similar to file upload, user can also upload any files in this HTML editor. So don't allow to upload exe or JS files. This is a security breach. Second, mention maximum characters allowed to be entered. For example, if there is a description field, you can allow user to enter 4000 characters only. So restrict user not to enter more than 4000 characters. Next, we will be discussing about mandatory controls. In every data entry form, there are few mandatory data to be captured from user and there are few optional data. To distinguish between mandatory and optional data, you have to place a red color asterisk in front of the label having mandatory control. Or you can make the label bold to be distinguished. Next, check mandatory controls at time of saving, that they should not be empty. That is, please don't save the data if mandatory columns are empty. Next, we will be talking about buttons. Buttons are normally placed center aligned, as you can see on the screen. Second, once Save button is clicked in data entry forms, it must be disabled and only enabled whenever data is saved or system has encountered an error. This will avoid saving duplicate records. You can place a please wait icon and text instead of save text while processing, and then again replace it with save text when process is completed. Next important point is to show a please wait icon whenever there is a delay of displaying data or increasing processing time on your website, be it a list page or a data entry form. Nowadays, all websites are using lazy loading. Lazy loading is a process of displaying data in chunks, suppose 10 items at a time. And when user views last item, next 10 remaining items are loaded. This is preferred instead of loading all data at once, which decreases performance. Next important point is error management. It is handled with 3 steps. First, we have to trap an error in our code. Second, we have to display a good, well-defined error page instead of system error for the user. And the third is error logging for later audit purposes. Next important point is alert messages. Please avoid using JavaScript alert messages as they are unsecure. Instead, display messages in proper pop-up windows as shown on the screen. Now we are moving towards some advanced topics as reCAPTCHA. reCAPTCHA control is placed on contactors or request forms to prevent spam and abuse from entering the site. They make sure that the data entry is done by the human and not by an automated script. Hackers use automated script to enter dummy data through contactors pages, which decreases the performance of the website. So to avoid entering data through automated scripts, reCAPTCHA control is placed, which stops the automatic scripts to enter the data. Here we will be discussing about forgot or reset password, which is a three-step process. Whenever user clicks on forgot password link on your website, he shall be asked to enter his registered email ID. Your code has to validate that email ID, and after validating, your code should send an email to that email ID having a reset password link. Second, user opens the email having this link and clicks on the link. Third, user is redirected to the web page where he can enter new password and confirm password. While submitting, you have to match new password with confirmed password, that they should not be different. After matching both the passwords and submitting, the password is changed. Here we are discussing about email ID verification, which is a three-step process. While getting email ID from user on profile page, we have to ensure that this particular email ID is of the same user which is entering the data. For this, we have to have a verify button in front of email ID text box. User has to click on verify button and your code has to send an email to that email ID. This email will have a link so that user, when clicks on that link, it goes to a web page and stores a successful message so that email is verified. Now if user has entered a correct email ID, he can go to that email and click on that link, so to verify the correct email ID. Similar to email ID verification, we also have to verify mobile number entered by the user, so to ensure that this mobile number is of the same user. When user enters the mobile number, your code has to send an SMS containing an OTP to the entered mobile number. If this mobile number is of the same user, user can see that SMS and then get the OTP. Now your program will be getting the OTP from the user. User, if enters the correct OTP, then your code will show a successful message, otherwise it is not validated. So friends, I hope this video was helpful to you and you have enjoyed watching it. Our next video will cover few more common functionalities as sign up, login process, etc. It will also discuss standard coding conventions which developers must adhere for best performance. Now it's time to say thank you and we will meet again. Please don't forget to like this video and put your comments. We will be happy to hear your suggestions for improvement of these video series. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.